This is Ask Brock. I'm Brock Yordy. This week's question comes from Victor after the IGSPA Dig Deeper seminar that was given last Friday. Brock, in your travels and discussions, have you found continued investment incentives in ground source geothermal industry being a national and bipartisan priority? I'm curious on your opinion if geo is only supported by one elected party. It's a great question. And this week's Driller Newscast, we covered what happens if we go beyond that 1.5 degrees Celsius and we hit that 2, and how quickly the polar ice caps and everything is impacted to our ecosystem. And so net zero and renewable energies, lowering our greenhouse gases, is a humanity problem, not one party or another. And we can see that the Northeast, where there's lots of trucks still running up and down the road delivering fuel oil, that there's an initiative to electrify and go to ground source geothermal and solar and wind. And the Northeast is doing a good job with that. And Governor Hochul, with the Thermal Networks and Jobs Acts, has shown that we can do this in other states. And then I think about the United States Climate Alliance, which is 25 of our 50 governors have committed to a net zero future by advancing, state-led initiatives. And those states, those 25 states, it's 55% of our population and 60% of our U.S. economy. But again, if we want to talk bipartisan, 22 of those states are Democratic governors and 3 of those states are Republican. But it's all about our voice being heard as the individuals who are asking our state representatives, our local, to get involved. And we see this from district geothermal systems and cities and towns. And you can have an entire state that has voted one way, but is still doing a lot of great net zero initiatives. And when it comes down to it, every driller listening to these Ask Brocks should be joining the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association, should be paying attention to how to diversify our business right now and how to get loops to the ground, because the biggest thing we have is needing more drillers to be able to put more loops in. And when we put those loops in, we manifold that. We have all of that ground above us to still be a park, to be a garden, to become an urban farm. There's so many things we can do there. But what happens? We see lots of solar. We see lots of wind. We see these solar farms just taking up rich, fertile farmland. And the way we're drilling those with 20-foot holes in the ground, that concrete caissons, micropiles, remediation is not going to be easy. And we think about, from a remediation standpoint, the age of a loop field and how long that life cycle can be versus our solar technology and our wind technology. And right now we're seeing lots of initiatives to recycle that, and these massive windmills and turbines, and how do we recycle that for the next technology? And so it should be bipartisan, no different than we see clean water and clean air. But what have we seen as a country? West Virginia versus the EPA, the Supreme Court siding with West Virginia on air quality and emissions. We've seen 26 states sue the EPA over the waters of the United States and those rulings. We have fights right now about what's the right parts per trillion or million for PFAS, and we're going for that 4 parts per trillion. And we have mayors across the country going, we can't afford to do this. And so we have a lot going on with our environment, and it gets split in many ways. And ground source geothermal gets overshadowed when it shouldn't because it's so important. But what do? We do a really good job of installing it, and it's hidden and it's productive. And so we have to keep fighting that good fight and showing those incentives. And the states that are adding incentives on top of what the federal incentives are right now to install ground source heat pumps is big, because right now we see incentives that say use a heat pump. We don't really talk about the viability. We need to get the Department of Energy Buildings Technologies Office thinking about ground source heat pumps, and not just the Department of Energy Geothermal Group, which is hot rock power generation. There's a lot going on that we can have a voice on. Great question. Thanks, Victor.